Setting up shop.
Hello and welcome again to Setting Up Shop, the Maker Journey podcast where we talk about taking your hobby through to professional business. My name's Dan and I'm a wood turner, and with me are Heidi and Rasmus. And for whatever reason, I always say his name like that, but that's going to become a staple of this. This is fine. So Heidi is a potter and Rasmus is a blacksmith. And between the three of us, we've got a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of experiences where we can hopefully help you out and help you not to make some of the same mistakes we did, but also to inspire you to do things in a variety of different ways to move forward. If you were listening for last week, we set an assignment at the end of the episode, and the assignment was to go and print out a timeline for a week and write down all of the free time you thought you might had, any things you might be able to sacrifice so that you can give yourself a bit more time, but also factor in things like you've still got to sleep sometimes, you've got to eat, you've got to remember to do all those normal day-to-day things. So hopefully you'll have that in front of you or in the back of your mind when you to listen to this episode, because today we're going to talk about what is your USP, your unique selling point. What is it that will make people come to you rather than going to someone else? So to start and kick off with that, we want to talk about the fact that you don't really want to be too general. You want to be really obvious what it is you are selling. And that can be from your name right the way through to the way you present yourself at the marketplace. And so to start with, we're going to talk to Rasmus a little bit about that. And we're going to ask about how he makes it obvious to people what it is he makes and what he sells, and if that varies from market to market as well. So Rasmus, what do you think?
Well, not entirely sure where to begin. But there was, I noticed one point, like sort of through possibly along the last 5 years or something of being a blacksmith, that the conversation when people asked, what do I do? And I answered, you're a blacksmith. It changed from being, oh, really? To people just looking at me and saying, yes, that makes sense. Not sure what that means, but somewhere along the line, I more or less turn into the caricature of what a blacksmith is. So when I show up places, nobody is surprised of what I bring, so to speak.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, I was also thinking about the fact that so what you make, obviously, it does include knives. It does include various blades and things like that. A lot of bottle openers. Things, but you've also gone to a few markets which have been more garden orientated.
Yes.
And so you have kind of skewed some of what you're producing and selling to meet that demand.
Yeah, I sort of accidentally ended up really enjoying and making a lot of roses and heart hooks, which is also very contrasting to like the stereotypical blacksmith that you have in your mind of like big, beardy, bushy, rough around the edges and all of that. Not sure about how many of those criteria I fulfill, but yes, that's a thing people think. And I really enjoy making roses because that's nice and it goes quick and it earns me money. Then going to a couple of garden markets is like having these old ladies coming up to me and saying like I have this massive rose bush or something silly. I need something to support it. I need something here. And suddenly having literally grape thumbs coming into a community full of green thumbs and having to understand what do they want, how do they work, and pivot into that and realizing this is easy for me to do, but it's not something I would have realized on my own.
Okay, so that's feeding into something we're going to talk about a little bit later then, really, isn't it? It's talking about the kind of almost the market research element of it and your customer base.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
No, that's not a problem at all. I led the question, so it's absolutely fine. So going back to the USP, the unique selling point, the roses are definitely something that if I was to say blacksmith to someone, or if I was to say, what do you think a blacksmith makes? And we'll steer aside the usual misconceptions of a farrier. The fact that you produce these roses, which aren't unique to you necessarily, is you've not come up with a design, but actually being a blacksmith who makes them in multiples and has them for sale as well as what the expected things to be. I think, would you say that sets you aside apart? I mean, I certainly think it does, but I've not gone and looked at lots of blacksmiths when they're selling at markets.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And for me, I joke and say it was accidental. It's accidental how well it's been selling for me. But it was on purpose something I wanted to do, because when I showed up to markets, I had a lot of interest from other men who came and wanted to see the knives, the axes, all the rough other things. But realizing that I'm missing out on 50% of the demographic that comes up to the shop.
Yeah.
Having something for them would be really nice. So that's where the roses specifically came from, to try to get some interest to someone I weren't selling to at all.
Okay, that's very interesting. So, okay, we'll leave that there with yourself a little bit, and we'll move on to Heidi and change the question slightly. So, when you first started selling your pottery, Heidi, did you start with the same sort of range as you're selling now, or did it become more? Ignoring designs and glazes, let's just talk about the individual types of vessel. Did you have a broad range to start with, or did you focus on a particular thing like you tend to now?
Well, I want to say that like it was all clear, but really the biggest focus was the mugs and making them specific to a shop that I was selling at, and they were looking for something that was Pittsburgh themed.
Okay.
I had developed a few things with that in mind, and then they came back and they were like, "We want that." So it was pretty organic with how it worked out. I definitely didn't run into it in the mind of, I want to make this one thing and that's all I want to make.
Yeah.
But I did have a thought in my head of, how do I make one product that I can customize for multiple clients? So maybe the shape of the vessel is similar, and then it just has like icons, or it has a logo or something on it to like differentiate between customers and bring something that maybe people weren't used to seeing with pottery. There's a lot of potters that just like throw a vessel and that's it. Like they come up with the glaze and then, it takes off from there. For me, I immediately had a mindset of, I want to sell to small businesses. I want to be part of their story. So that made it a little bit easier, I think.
That's pretty cool. So you've already looked around at what other people are doing, and I've certainly noticed a lot in my area. If you see a ceramicist, everything seems to be like, right, this is the blue glaze phase for a couple of months, and then it will become like a sea green or whatever the case may be. And that is their change, is just one color, or maybe they experiment with two, but it's not. I haven't seen anyone else doing the whole logo thing, and the amount of work that you put into it and the utilization of your other techniques and what you've got available to you. But both of you have said interesting things there, in that, Raz, you've created almost your USP as a blacksmith because you wanted to broaden the market. You didn't want it to just be, oh, guys will come and look at my stand because it's knives and axes and all of that kind of stuff. And some women would come and look at that as well, but not as many. Or maybe the guy would want to come and see my stuff and his wife would be with him and she'd be like, no, you've seen enough of that. You've got enough of that. But you've broadened the range of what it is you're selling that appeals to a wider market, which means more people are coming to your stand. And that's then led to people asking you to make other things. And then Heidi, you've kind of got your everyday object. Everyone wants a mug, even if they don't drink tea or coffee. I want a mug. I rarely have like a hot chocolate in the wintertime or something like that, but I want my special mug that I know is mine, and it always tastes better out of that mug. So the fact that you've identified what the vessel is that you're going to be making most of, or your staple, and they can vary in how much they can carry, and the shape and the form and the handle and all that kind of stuff. But what's making it unique to you is the fact that you can customize it to a small business, or if someone wanted a one-off special or something like that for a commemorate a birthday or a retirement or something like that. So I think those are both quite interesting ways to look at things. And if people haven't considered what makes them stand out and what makes them unique, I mean, in my instance, I'm a wood turner. There's a lot of retired old guys who are making bowls or making pens They're all out of wood that is not necessarily very changeable in color. And, you know, even then there's a lot of people who have gone down the route of playing with texture or playing with color and all that kind of thing.
Okay, may I just
go on.
interrupt there a little bit? Because here in Norway, I was told at the last National Blacksmithing Meetup that I'm the only blacksmith in Norway that makes money doing what I do.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it surprised me as well. There's a lot of other hobbyists that go to markets and sell things, but I'm the only one that actually has it as a full-time job and a major pillar of my business.
Okay.
But when it comes to the whole wood turning community, and I don't know how this stands for potters and ceramists, but that seems to be something that a lot more people do and pick up.
Yeah.
Not sure about how, like, the full-time aspect, if there's anyone who, you know, that does that and goes to market, but...
So there are a couple of different, as with any discipline, there are always subdivisions within it.
Yeah.
So the guys who are full-time professionals tend to be what they would call a spindle turner. So most of them don't go to a market. They do commission work, and it can be anything from make 10 candlesticks that look identical that then go into a shop. It can be turning really large table bases on quite a large lathe. It can be replacement stairway spindles in small batches for companies, all sorts of different stuff. Or like, there's been quite a rise in demand recently for pocket watch stands because people are collecting pocket watches again, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, so you get to play around with design a little bit. But the guys who do that professionally, they're not going to markets. You know, they're either third or fourth generation, or they did an apprenticeship or whatever. I think the youngest guy doing that at the moment is in his late 40s, early 50s, and he started playing around with the lathe at his dad's shop when he was 14, and his dad he made wooden window frames, so he had access to this kind of stuff from a young age. But then there are also the other guys who do it, they have made a name for themselves through artistic wood turning. And they've done it alongside a full-time job, and then they have merged across to being a full-time wood turner. There's a guy called Gary Rance who this week released his once a month he turns for a week, and all he makes is apples and pears in exotic hardwoods. And he has got himself quick enough that he can make a profit off them quite reasonable, even when you average out the price of them being charged at £17.50 for an apple.
Oh,
okay. So he turns fast, but he turns in batches, and he will take him 2 days, and he'll do 50 of these, and they'll all be really nice. They'll be highly polished. They'll be beautifully made in a variety of exotic hardwoods. And then that's like he takes like a week off after that of just doing nothing, and then he spends 2 weeks doing commissions. So we've got a few things like that. But that's the broader scale. The majority, as you say, like the majority of wood turners are kind of, particularly at craft markets, tend to be guys who are doing it as a hobby, or they're retired and they just want to pay for the hobby.
Yeah.
And that's where you don't necessarily have the unique selling point. They're not worried about that. They're just trying to pay for what they're buying. And that's where it can undermine the market a little bit, because I deliberately choose to go to markets that aren't the cheap and cheerful £5 a table in a village hall, because the chances of me selling my stuff at the price that I want to charge for it is quite remote. And the chances of there being another guy there who I've probably sold wood to in my day job and is then selling a bowl for like £15, and I sold him the bowl blank for 10. And I know that he's not there to make money. He's literally just paying for the hobby. He's just trying to keep his wife happy by not spending his retirement fund on all this kind of stuff.
And there's a big difference there, I think, between the not only like the hobbyists, but also like what do you bring to this market to distinguish yourself? Because if you were just selling the same as the old retirees that just wanted a self-fulfilling hobby, you wouldn't stand out. You wouldn't be remembered in any way.
No, absolutely. And I think the other thing is what I've done to try and stand out is, rather than have lots of one-offs that are all championing the individual piece of wood, I try to have, so for instance, I'll try and make a set of plates. So I might turn a batch all at the same time of, say, 10 or 15 or so plates, all of the same size from the same species of wood. But they will all have the same rim thickness, the same depth, the same sort of hollow out to the middle, so that people could buy one or a pair of them if they wanted to, or they could buy a set of 6, and they will all match within a tolerance that they will be different, but they the skill that I'm trying to develop is from that the only way you would tell they're different is if you really meticulously measure them. Like, you should be able to hold 2 up next to each other and not see with the naked eye that there is anything different about them. So that's kind of part of my USP, the fact that I'm making kitchenware and tableware, so it's not anything outside of that remit. A lot of it I try to have historically inspired, or at least, you know, I'm not creating something new that no one's ever used before, you know, but at the same time, I'm not going to make pieces that haven't been used for centuries because people no longer use them. So for instance, I would love to have a go at some point at making a lemon juicer. They used to like turn those and then carve the little sections out of them where, you know, the little thing you shove into the lemon and get the juice out. When was the last time you saw someone use a lemon juicer?
Probably in a pub. Way too posh pub. Precisely. So it's not something I'm necessarily going to have on my website or on my craft stand, but it might be something that I make to challenge my own skill set and to try and improve things. But it would fit within the remit of it's, you know, it's food related, it's made of wood, it's on the lathe, it's something that is historically, you know, there are evidence for it and I can play with, and it would fit all of the USP, but it's not something that people are going to go, oh yeah, I'll buy one of those, and then they see that the price is like £25 and they can pick one up for £1.50 in a supermarket that's also made of wood. Unless they really, like, you know, unless they buy one of everything from my brand and they're a collector, or I've done something really special to it, it's unlikely to sell. So there's having a USP, but there's also trying to understand that it needs to fit within the realms of reality. You know, don't get me wrong, I might be very fortunate and get to a point where I can make a £25 lemon juicer and someone will buy it and they'll sell really well because they want to have my product. So talking about the, you know, it's also kind of going into which markets you pick and choose, what size your range is, and all of that kind of thing. One of the things that I did that was bad, and I'm sure everyone's already tired of hearing me talk about it, so we'll move on to Heidi in just a second. I got very excited when I came up with my concept and what I was going to be doing. And so I went ahead and went, all right, well, there's these 10 different products I'm going to do. And I made prototypes of all of them. And rather than going, right, here's what's good and what's bad about this one, I just went, that's fine, and moved on to the next one. So I very quickly ended up with a range that all of which were okay. And none of them were really up to the standard of what I wanted. So it's, I mean, I'm still thinking like only 10 different items. That's not a lot.
it's not a lot, but it's, you know, you've got to think about, it's not, so this is the thing for me with a product. You can't just think of, I'm making a product. So for instance, right, I'll say a rolling pin, which is one of the ones I haven't made yet. Okay. There are at least 3 different styles of rolling pin. So which one do you make?
Yeah.
What length do you want it? What's the purpose? What's it going to be for? Is it for pastry? Is it for pasta? Is it for, you know, all of these different things? And all of a sudden you find yourself delving down a rabbit hole of just one product. Or you can just go, I'm going to turn a cylinder and round the ends off, and that's a rolling pin. But you've not thought about what's it for. Who's going to use it? Look at the market around me. How much do they normally sell for? What am I going to sell it for? How do I justify it being more expensive, which it's bound to be? And all that kind of stuff. How do I package it? If I'm going to ship this, have I got packaging for this? What am I going to sell it as? Am I going to name it? You know, not Bob the Rolling Pin, but are you going to give it like an artistic sounding name? And all of these kind of factors that when you're excited and you're in the workshop, you don't necessarily consider, but they all lead into what the final shape should end up being. But so really the comment is, I suppose, or the question I don't know if you've got any specific analogies or not, Heidi, but I'm not expecting you to have, is that thing of when you first started and you realized you were working for a shop, you just said, you didn't just give the shop one option. How many options did you give them, and what made you think like that?
Well, I think when it comes to what they were asking for, they were pretty used to doing product development themselves. So they were pretty specific about what they were looking for. And they had already seen something that like was in my Instagram that they were like, okay, this and this color. So I didn't really have to do too much that first iteration. But when they came back to me like 6 months later, when all of those pieces were selling out so quickly, they were like, okay, we want to expand on this idea. And we want something maybe a little bit more masculine. What kind of glazes do you have? Can you share with us? Do you have any ideas? They had already had a graphic that they were using. It resembles the Three Rivers of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And so we kind of talked through what their expectation was. So already from the initial ask, I already have in my head, okay, it needs to be masculine. What type of mug is masculine? Oh, a beer stein or a tankard or something like that, something larger in volume. So I also considered the shape and what size handle it should be, right? So men typically have a larger hand than women do. So I wanted it to be a bit taller. I wanted it to have a larger handle. I wanted it to be within like masculine hues. And they already gave me the artwork for what they wanted as a medallion or a badge on the front. So I had already been experimenting with like, I don't know, 100 different glaze colors.
Yeah.
I use mostly commercial glazes. I don't mix my own. I don't need to do that. You know, there's other
time,
people
isn't it?
that's their thing.
Yeah.
And I maybe eventually I'll do it, but I buy all of my glazes in powder form, and then you just add water to it.
Yeah.
And with the Three Rivers mug, we immediately knew that we didn't want to do anything blue because it's not really a Pittsburgh themed color. But I had this this glaze that when fired, it looks like rust.
Oh, cool.
And we really like the idea of like the bridges and it being the rust belts and it's steel industry. So that's when we made the decision to go with that color. But it definitely was not like, I don't rely on myself. Like I do a lot of like talking to friends and talking to family and talking to the customer about like what their vision is, so that, you know, I'm not spinning my wheels, you know, spend a month developing something they don't like.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So that's we've got two different angles there. We've got you as not you specifically, but each of us individually as if we were creating our own USP for whether it be a single product, a range of products, or everything we want to make. Or you've got what is it the customer wants? What is the thing that they want it to be unique about? And all they're actually utilizing is your skills to create a thing. You're putting your spin on it, and you know, you're suggesting the color because of what you've already played with, which is something we really need to talk about in a future episode, of utilizing skills you've already been developing, not trying to learn new things for a specific whatever. But that's definitely two different angles, and in some ways the restrictions, if you like, being put on you by a client make it easier, because they say we want a masculine mug, right? Bang, that's got rid of like 50%, let's just say, of what you can make. Regarding size, exactly as you've said, you know, hand size, so that will determine the shape of a handle, the strength of a handle, the size of it, and everything else. So that's really interesting. Whereas I think if you, like with you, Raz, like if you were to sit there with a pad of paper and go, right, well, I'm a blacksmith, this is what I make. What's my range going to be that's going to be different from everyone else? I can't imagine that you would have gone, oh, well, roses. You know, that wouldn't have been a natural progression. That's come about from your market research, from physically going to several events and trying to work out how to bring more people to your stand.
And if I'm also point out, like, I laugh when you say, oh, you feel foolish because you jumped in and made too many different products by having 10 of them. I might have showed up with 20 to my first market. And that's also at the fact of me just having no clue what I was doing when I started out 10 years ago. And also, like, here's a vast range of things I learned to make when in school. Let me just keep practicing that. And then adding on to that later on. And then, in addition, having just ideas of things like, oh, this would be fun, this could be cool. And I made a lot of shit things for a really long time before I realized that, oh, this didn't sell, I'll stop making that. And then come back to it in 3 years' time and realize that, oh, but if I just do the design completely differently, maybe that'd work.
Yeah. Okay. Heidi, you got a point on that?
Yeah. So I guess like I cut my teeth on everyone else's ideas, and that was really great to build my business and really, harness that like batch work. But after that, it was, okay, well, if I want to do markets, I can't just sell what I'm selling to these individual companies. I need to like have something that I make myself that like really gets me excited. And I'm a little embarrassed to say that my dad gave me the idea because he's like, you need Bigfoot.
But that turned into a really cool item for you.
It did. And to be honest, like I thought it would be kind of kitschy, so I wasn't too keen on it. Like you, Dan, I wanted to have my brand a bit more elevated. And then I was like, you know what? I am fun. I grew up this way. This is my heritage. Like these are things that like my family cares about. Why am I rejecting that for like some idea that I'm going to be suddenly in Vogue magazine or something? Like, no, let's bring it down. Let's bring it down to like what people around me are actually interested in versus like my overall vision. And when I did that, I ended up like blossoming so much with like all of these ideas and got really excited. And I was able to take something that like for the most part is more like folklore and kind of, that whole like bumper sticker thing and turned it into something that's a little higher end, that people maybe that have camps want to have as like dinnerware or drinkware and that kind of thing. So although the initial idea was kind of hokey, I was able to bring it up to I guess the level that I wanted my brand to be.
So there's two really cool things from that. The first one is absolutely understand what you mean about, no, I only make high-end things. I couldn't possibly make that. Even when you're looking at it and it will sell, it will generate you turnover, it will do really well, but you're like, oh, yeah, but that's gimmicky, that's kitschy, that's, all those words. But you did eventually go, hey, hang on a minute. Yes, it will sell, but just because it will sell because it's linked to that doesn't mean I have to make my thing look trashy or like cheap or whatever. You can do it in such a way. And I mean, I would never say looking at your Bigfoot mug that is like, oh, well, that's just that's a $10 item in a whatever. That's hey, look, this is fun. I went to this thing. Maybe I'm a bit older. I've got a bit more surplus cash. I don't want the bumper sticker. I don't want the like bookmark or whatever else it is they do, the Bigfoot slippers or something. I don't know. But I'll take the mug for the visiting of that area, and that's quite cool. That's quite a thing. The other one is, if you haven't already read the book Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon, that's AUSTIN KLEON. I can highly recommend that. It's a really quick read. It's a really good little book. And I can, even better than that, I can strongly recommend you don't buy it brand new on Amazon. You can find them really cheaply secondhand all over the place. But he's got some fantastic points in there about there is no such thing as the original concept. Do not sit there beating yourself up thinking like, oh, but I can't use that. It's all inspiration. Everyone's taken bits from other places. It's how creativity works. The stream of consciousness, there's all those conversations you can look up. But I can highly recommend that book to anyone listening who's kind of feeling a little bit, oh, I'm not sure if I can do this or I can do that. Take inspiration from where you can get it. Absolutely do that.
It definitely was one of those things that like not only did it create a line of product for me to have that was more like, I don't want to say masculine because there are some women that buy it too, but so much of pottery is like sold to your granny or your auntie, and not so much to like just run of the mill like dudes that drink coffee in the morning, right? Yeah. And it's a great gift. So like, I think breaking that stereotype with my booth too helped bring people in. So I ordered a giant banner, and that's like one of the products that's on there. And it brings the attention of an audience that normally probably wouldn't come to my booth too.
Yeah.
So it was,
well, that's good. Yeah. You've kind
tenfold.
So you've not even just put it subtly on there, and if it sells, it sells. You've lent heavily into it, and you've gone, hey, if I'm doing this, let's do it. Let's really sell it. That's fantastic. I think that's tied in nicely with a couple of our next points. And one of them being is, who is your audience? Because the first few times you put out the stand, you put out the table, and you could have spent a lot of money on a gazebo and a set of tables and banners and all this kind of stuff. But if you don't know who your audience is and you're set up at the wrong market, or you've not pitched it the right way, getting people to come to your stand can be really tricky. I do know a guy, in fact, we all know a bunch of 3 guys who are blacksmiths who have just sort of started getting going with their own place, Thornwood Forge. Shout out those guys. They did a festival recently, which was all about bushcrafting and it's called Wilderness or the Wild in Us Festival. Nice little play on words there. One of the things they did was have owl cooking using the coals and stuff, but they didn't have a license to sell the food. So they were giving away free food samples that had been cooked at the forge. So you've now got a draw. And one of the other things which I found fascinating was, Raz, if you were setting up a blacksmith brand, what color would your t-shirt be?
I mean, most likely black.
Okay. Do you know what color their t-shirts are?
I do.
Their t-shirts are bright in your face orange.
Yep.
Okay. Like, I don't know whether Joe deliberately thought this through or whatever, but it's one of those things of everyone's going, what's going on over there? Because there's this like fluorescent beacon of 3 guys, and there's flames, and there's food, and you've just got this trifecta of reasons to go and visit over here. What's happening? Obviously, you can't always do that if you're in the middle of a town center, and you can't have, you don't want to have a kiln running or flames going or anything like that. But if you can do stuff that isn't gimmicky, that ties in with your brand to bring people along, it really does help. But obviously that makes a difference if you've got other people to help you there. One of the things I'm currently researching to do for when I go to markets is I'm trying to work a way of building a light enough weight portable treadle lathe, so foot powered lathe, so that I can have that on one side, because I'm getting a lot of people saying, did you make this? It's like, well, yeah, I'm stood here selling this product, but I've not made it obvious to everyone that I have created these things in front of me on the table. So I'm currently looking at putting any reels, any footage and that, sticking it all together in one long video to put on a little tablet and have that playing, of pictures of me doing stuff, big banner of me stood at the lathe with things coming off, just to really try and make it obvious to everyone. No, I am the person who has created these pieces. They've not been imported. I've not bought them from somewhere else. The other thing to point out and to bring up now then is pricing. So we're not going to talk about how to cost, but something I didn't do on my first one, I only actually had 3 items out on my table to begin with, or 3 different products out on the table. All of them were basically the same price. So I had 2 of them at about £45, and then I had 1 of them at £65. That was my price range, was £45 to £65. That's asking a lot from your very first market, when you're sat up on a plastic table with like a cheap tablecloth on it and a borrowed gazebo, and that's it. You're clearly just starting out. You clearly haven't got the budget to like put up a big banner and do anything fancy. I didn't even have anything and like pot plants or anything like that. But something that I really wish I'd realized before I got going was try to have a range of priced products.
Yes.
And Raz, I know you've got a wide range, as you've already mentioned a few times today.
Yes, but that's like, it wasn't a very conscious decision for me to have like everything from knickknacks to really expensive things. That was literally hearing the stories of, why do restaurants have really expensive wines on their menu? And it's just to make all the other things look cheap. And if some idiot falls for it and want to spend a lot of money and impress someone, they can do that.
Okay.
So that's why also, like, I sell key rings, key fobs, like paw prints stamped on copper for 8 to 10 quid. And then I sell like, I brought a custom sword I made for a wedding that was specifically from Zelda Twilight Princess, and it's the master sword that they used to carve the cake in that wedding. I brought that along, and I put a price tag on that and say, this is sold, but here's what I can do. Here's just a range of things.
Yeah.
And all the other things in between, like having the roses and having knife blades and all of those things, and sort of fill out the price range. So if you come and just like the story I'm selling of me doing blacksmithing in a modern society and just want to support me, you can find something to spend your money on. If you want to give that to someone else, like if you have a gift budget, there's something in that range as well.
Yeah. So that's a really good point. You've got you're talking about a variety of different people. Those who might just be the casual buyer, they'll give you a couple of quid for something, and then you've got the people who seriously take the time to look at things. You must do the same as well, Heidi. I mean, having looked at your setup a few times, I know you've said in the past there's people who've picked stuff up who haven't realized quite how expensive it is.
Yeah. So I have a range of $5 to $250. I don't tend to take too many of the $250 items, mainly because they're a little bit more precious and fragile, and it's really hard to cart around. But secondarily, if someone is looking for that price point item, they're probably going to ask for something custom. Maybe they get an idea from the glazes that I have on other items, and then they're asking for it. I have sold a few of the higher end items just like super randomly. I'm like, wait, what? You really want that? Okay, great. Thank you.
I have the same experience, but it's one of those things where like, I would almost recommend people when they go to the first markets to have some of those things that looks a lot nicer, but might sort of quote unquote have the same cost of producing as the regular items, but just price it more, just to fill out that range. Because like, if just someone happens to want it, you make extra money on it. Yeah,
I also up price things that I'm not ready to let go of.
Yes, as well.
So like, I might make this like more sculptural piece that I'm like, oh, I love it so much. I want it to live with me a little bit longer. I'm just going to price it up. And then maybe like when someone does buy it, it's like, makes me feel a little bit better that they actually wanted it, and it wasn't just like, oh yeah, this is just going to go on a shelf and nobody's ever going to care about it. Like they're willing to pay that hard-earned dollar. But I also like a lot of the shows that I do are super kid friendly. So I like to have things that like kids can touch and pick up and might want. So a lot of times they're like either like tiny little necklaces Carver helped me with, or little tiny pinch pot bowls or magnets. And those go really well, and they fill out the negative space on my table. And, it's one of those things that initially I was just using those as glaze tests. So they weren't really anything that I was too precious about. So sometimes I give them away, if there's a mom and she's like really interested in the pieces, or a dad that's really interested in the pieces, and they have little ones with them, and the little ones are like touching things and the parents are getting nervous, oh gosh, oh my goodness. And I just hand them, I hand them one of those pieces and I'm like, you can have this. And then they're occupied with that little thing. So the parents like feel a little bit more at ease to shop and not so worried that like, I'm going to freak out if a piece gets broken. Like I'm not that precious about my word.
Having things break is not really my issue. It's more like breaking tables and the floor or something that could happen at my end.
Or cutting themselves.
Yes, but that's why I sell Band-Aids for 50 quid each.
So interestingly enough, this is something I need to break away from. As I already mentioned, is that whole thing of, oh, I'm not making that. It doesn't, my brand's too high end for that. So one of the things I've had a few people suggest to me who are other wood turners that used to work for them was fridge magnets. And they literally, much the same as you were talking about, Heidi, was that whole thing of, hey, just turn a disc of exotic wood, some like really nice stuff. It's got a bit of figure into it. Just turn it down, pair it off, glue in a rare earth magnet to the back of it. It's like £2, something like that. And now in the back of my head, I'm like, but that's not kitchen or tableware. Theoretically, it goes on a fridge. It holds, it's in the kitchen, but I mean, it feels like you're shoehorning it into that kind of range. But equally, you can make them cost effectively. You can kind of like, and again, it's that really cheap thing. So I'm still something that I'm wrestling with on that one.
If I may contest you there a little bit.
Certainly.
Do you have anything that you bring along that just screams fun?
No, nothing's fun.
So you need something.
We don't do fun here. What are you talking about?
Sorry.
This is a very serious endeavor. Fun.
Just me.
You're talking about. There's no color. There's no fun. It's all just no. I genuinely I don't. It's all
because like silly example in my end is like I make bottle openers, and I often enough I don't make bottle openers. I teach bottle openers and I demonstrate making bottle openers, and I have leftovers from that, and I sell those when they look nice enough, or I give them away.
Yeah.
But one thing I do make is the dragon tail bottle openers. Absolutely unnecessary. I tend to make them as big as I can, usually weighing like 500 grams to 1.5 kilos, just because they are supposed to be unnecessarily big.
Yeah.
But they are fun. They look really cool.
Yeah, and the likelihood is the person who's going to buy them is going to be the size of a Viking, so it won't be a problem to them being that size anyway.
There's that as well. So I'm not saying fridge magnets will be your fun item to bring along, but Heidi has her Sasquatch or the Bigfoot thing.
Yeah.
And you can, I guess, in some instances, be at risk of looking too stuck up and too serious in the market.
Absolutely. It is a problem that I'm trying to work out how to maintain one thing, but kind of lean to make it open to more people, if that makes sense at all, which probably doesn't. The problem I'm having with is literally that thing of everything that I make, I want to be able to be functional and used every day. I don't make art. I'm very specific about that. People might look at my thing and say this is a work of art because it's something that they don't necessarily currently have the skill set to make, but I know I can teach them to do that. So I'm not, but I don't make a thing that is to be just sat on a shelf and looked at. If people choose to do that with the items I make, that's fine. That's up to them. Once it's left me, that's good. But at the same time, it could be used. I've specifically used a finish on it that is food safe. I've specifically thought about what is the capacity of this. I've not done, there's a trend at the moment for making bowls that have got like a 2 or 3 inch round rim on the outside, and then there's like this tiny dish in the middle. But the idea of the 2 or 3 inch rim around the outside is so that you've got this really big canvas to put color or texture or carving and stuff on.
Right.
That's not what I do. I could do it, but it wouldn't really fit in with the rest of the ranges as I'm currently making them. So I am still wrestling with that at the moment, because the really obvious one would be to take some sycamore or beech bowls and then color the outside of them so that they've got a really rich color, that they're quite fun and kind of draw people into the stand. So maybe you could have like a vibrant teal kind of color.
Yeah.
Or like a rich red color, and you could put a lacquer over the top, but you're then getting into the realms of almost mimicking ceramics, which is there's lots of level stuff, which isn't a problem. I don't have a problem with any of that, but it's what could be. I'm trying to reduce the price down a bowl to make it affordable, to make it the £20 bowl, and then you suddenly start pushing the price back up again because you've now adding a layer of color. It's taking more time. You've got to put a lacquer, so there's a lot of factors in there about.
And at that point, we might start approaching the topic of having a loss lead, which is maybe a bit for a later episode.
Well,
I wonder.
probably, but
I
yeah.
wonder though too. Is it your approach to market? Like, is your end goal to sell to restaurateurs? Is your
Yes.
end goal to sell an entire spread to an affluent family that really, digs your
Yeah.
stuff? Or is your end goal to just consistently do markets? To me, your brand speaks more to that like elevated price point, those bigger clients that are looking for, an entire series of pieces for their restaurant or their home. And at that point, like maybe some of the suggestions that we have aren't necessarily like what would grow that part of your business, because it does kind of water down your brand a little bit to mimic some of the tricks that Ras and I are doing to get people into the booth.
It's a very tricky thing, and absolutely, Heidi. Yeah, I mean, the ideal for me would be I've had a few chefs look at my stuff and go, "Oh, could you make?" But I've not had any of them look at my stuff and go, "Can you give me 20 of those?" They've all looked at what I've done, respected the craft level, and then asked if I can make them something completely different, which is absolutely fine. And then that actually ties in nicely with our kind of next point of this conversation today, which is understand where you want to go.
Yeah.
Do you just want to rock up at a few local craft fairs and make enough money that it sustains you? You're not having to travel too far. You're not having to stress about making a huge batch of stuff for a big client or wholesaling to anywhere. Or do you want to use the markets literally as they originally, marketing is called marketing for a reason. You're testing products, you're testing new things. And hey, if you happen to sell stuff that covers the cost of your pitch fee and maybe a bit of your time, that's great. But you're actually using this as a who buys this thing, why do they buy it, and what do they use it for? Therefore, do I make it better? Can I save money somewhere because actually I'm making it out of a higher end product that isn't required for what they're using it for, or material, not product, sorry. All those kind of things. And so those sort of pillars of your business, are you looking at commissions? Are you looking at wholesale, or are you just looking at direct sales? Do you just want to stay there in your lane? And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And that's where you get to play around with literally going, hey, do you know what? This week I fancied making 50 of this product that are all the same thing, and I've worked out my price point, and this is what they'll sell at. And they won't go off because it's not a food related product necessarily. So I can just sit there and know that that's what I'm comfortable selling these at. And they can sit there for 3 months or 6 months, or maybe if they're really popular, I'll make another load another week.
There's also something to be said for if you already have something that is selling well and it doesn't sell at the market, then also that's fine. Then you sit on them for another couple of weeks or a month and they sell at the next one or online. Having social media, you can also say like, I have these left over from this market. Do anyone fancy them? And push things that way. But were you about to go into how to know if a market is for you?
Well, not necessarily, but
my mind went there, and
that is exactly where we need to lead to. So if you've got a specific example of that, Rasmus, lead the way.
Yeah. I've done a lot of markets over the years now, and I've boiled down to a few really good ones a year. I think I have 3 really good ones a year, and then another 3 that is okay and or more fun. And I'm also about to try out a few new ones. But it has taken me a couple of years to realize that, no, these are the markets I know will be good, that I can go back to and make steady money on. Here's a couple that if I have the headspace for it, if I have the surplus of stocks, I can go there. I won't make as much, but I will make some. But it's taken years to get there. So my mom, over the last couple of years, has started setting up her own business selling plant-dyed yarn and he also weaves her own fabrics and is making our national costume here in Norway, the bunad. So very traditional stuff. But she hates going to markets. She has not been able to make any of them work for her. But that's how she leads on it. And then I asked her a few more questions, like, she did, but that market early on once, didn't like it. She did that market early on, didn't like it. Then she tried this market and it went all right, but she didn't like it. I was like, then you don't like markets.
Yeah.
because it can take years, not only to build up the credibility of the people that frequent this market and has been going to this market for years, to actually have that trust in your customer that, oh, now we have seen you a couple of whiles. Now we want to spend our money with you. Now we trust you. They might not be able to verbalize it that way, but that's often how it comes across, or how it might be internalized, subconsciously so anyway. And then also there's the fact of you need to learn to go to markets. You need to learn how to deal with customers and get people over, how to smile at them without being creepy, how to interact with them and chit-chat about the same questions for 1,000 times over the course of a weekend and not want to strangle anyone. Ask me how I know.
But it's also that thing as well, though, isn't it, of being able to read people and realize where they're just chatting. And if there's someone who comes along behind who looks like they're interested, you need to be able to politely end the conversation, which is a skill that can be learned.
Yeah, and also just like having that, even if you're meeting a conversation, even if you like that conversation, just being able to say, if you need anything, let me know. Yeah. And just be able, I mean, that's a very ADHD, I know, but being able to sort of keep track of two conversations at the same time, it's a really useful skill when you are at markets and you have one really fascinating conversation, but also a customer that wants something and not make them feel ignored.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the thing to realize with all this as well, though, if we lean back to the assignment from last week, is what fits your time availability. You've got your timetable, you've worked out what you can do. So, do you have the time to make all of the things, or do you have the time to make some of the things and do a better prep for your market stall, and work out which markets are good ones to go to? And similarly, as we said before, with the whole kind of getting people to look at your product and give you good feedback, go to some of the markets you're tempted to go to and chat to the stall holders. They will all be happy to talk to you. And if you just say to them, don't be blunt and go, hi, how are you? How much did you pay for your pitch? That's not a good lead in, But just you can ask some questions and you can find out, how many times have you been here? Is this a good regular market for you? What's the kind of thing? And you don't have to ask people who are doing stuff similar to you. That's not necessarily the best thing. You want to ask a number of people from a number of different things that they're doing. Although top tip, anyone selling food will always have a good market. So it's kind of pointless asking them. Although it is always worth investigating what food they sell, because if you're going to stand there all day, then you want to know where the good stuff is and get there early.
Yes.
Ask me how I know.
We are of a like mind on that point.
Absolutely. Right, we're coming close towards the end of time, and I think we've covered most of our basic points, and I hope people have found that particularly helpful. Feel free to always message us and ask for further information, or we will cover things in future episodes as well. I'm trying to remember what the assignment was for this week, but I think what we can always say is that
we have a small checklist of things to consider, things to look out for, what you should ask yourself and do before you show up to your first market, and figure out sort of what is it that you will be doing at these markets. And I mean, markets is just a part of this, but sort of how to figure out what is your unique selling point, what is not only going to separate you from all the other people in your craft, but separate you in a room full of different craftspeople. Absolutely. So again, as this will be a downloadable thing, and if you're antiquated like me, you can print it out. And this will be available from our settingupshop.com website free of charge. There is no cost to download these things. These are all meant to help you guys out as much as possible. So with that in mind, I would also suggest that not only look at that and start working through the list, but also have a look at local markets, work out what they are, the different types of market they are, and all of that kind of thing. But before we go then, Rasmus and Heidi, we'll start with you. What one thing have you done this week or in the last period of time since we spoke to move closer towards your business goal? I'm sure there's been many.
Yeah, I've got quite a few. I would say the biggest milestone for me in the last week or so is I delivered a pretty large order to Mini Cooper USA.
Nice.
which was really super exciting. I've been working with them for the last couple of months to develop some pieces for them, and they had a big event in Pittsburgh called the Vintage Grand Prix, where they show off their cars from the lot. They also invite other people to come in and drive their Mini Coopers in the parade, and it's a really great event. Runs from like one weekend to the next weekend. So I made probably in the span of the last 2 months about 90 pieces for them.
Okay.
Which is a pretty large request for me. Normally my requests are like 15 to 30 pieces. So I delivered in two batches, and each piece was absolutely unique, which was super fun for me, but also a little stressful, right? Because I'm so used to batching the same thing over and over and over again. But I got to play, which is really fun. I got to play with manipulating files to make new types of stamps, so I could do a checkered pattern all the way around the mug for the finish line look that Mini Cooper does. They gave me access to all of their graphics to be able to make stamps of their logo, and I illustrated some vehicles, which was, it's just like hitting all the points of like really being excited about what I do, right? And it
getting the endorphins for yourself as well as for the customer.
I mean, that's what we're doing this for, right? We're not just here to like make money. We're here to like check all the boxes for ourselves. So that was a huge highlight, and it definitely gave me a vision for like what I can do in the future if I partnered with like Jeep or someone else that has a really passionate fan base, Land Rover or those kind of folks. And it was just one of those things like, oh, this is an avenue I didn't think about before. And all it took was me going to get my vehicle serviced and handing them a business card. And they're like, tell us about this that you're doing, pottery.
Nice.
So it is old school, a business card, but it is a conversation starter.
Absolutely.
And it still works.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Rasmus, what's yours? Other than the shop move again.
Well, still, I have packaged down, I think, nearly 4 metric tons of tools and materials on pallets.
Oh, so that's about quarter of your shop?
Just about, yeah. No, the big thing I'm kind of proud about now is I've actually got in conversation and been invited to attend a business-to-business market over New Year's. I'm not sure if it was end of January or February, but thereabout. So that will be a new for me, trying to actually do what Heidi's been doing and getting things into shops.
That sounds cool.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. And what's mine, you ask? Well, mine will be...
Yes, I do ask.
It's all right. Homage to some of our friends. So I'm gonna be rude and have two, because I'll forget one of them before the next time. One is I have moved some stuff around in my workshop, and today finished putting up a tool wall behind my lathe, so everything now is all in one space rather than kind of scattered around on various different spaces. But the second one is I have signed up to my first 3-day market, which is going to be at the end of September, which means that I really shouldn't be worrying about tools, and I should be starting to make stock. But that's all fine. That will all be good. It's actually going to be in the town of Bath, and it's during what they call the Great Bath Feast, where they shut down one of the main roads, and they have loads of high-end chefs and foodie people come along specifically to this event. And I'm one of only 10 stalls that are not specifically food related. So I thought this should be a good opportunity. So I booked some time off the day job. I only get a 2-meter space, and it is just basically a table, and it's £100 a day. So this is my most expensive and longest one that I've done, but that's fine. It will be a really good learning curve. I've just got to make enough stock to make sure that I don't get embarrassed. And because, obviously I'm going to sell out before halfway through the second day. So it's got to make sure that the table looks good. So yeah, it's definitely a step forward, that kind of thing of, trying to cross both boundaries of delivering at a good market, but also reaching out to those people that I really want to be wholesaling to as well. So that's the one for me. Well, we hope everyone enjoyed listening to this. It was quite heavy with my talking this week, so I'll have to rein that back in for the next one. But you can,
No, you're
if
fine.
you want to, yeah, well, maybe. Hey, if they've reached this far on the episodes and they don't like the sound of my voice, then they're going to be in for a treat for the next few months. So if you wanted to find us all, you can reach us through settingupshop.com, which has got links to all of our social medias on there. But if you are like me and too lazy to go from listening to something to then clicking on something, you can find me at Bevelwood UK on Instagram. So BEVELWOOD UK on Instagram and also on Facebook. And you can reach me through Messenger on there. Again, as we said last week, if you ever make something and you want some honest critique, that with both positive and minus, you can reach all of us on our individual places. Heidi, where can people find you, please?
You can find me at Whitehall_pottery on Instagram, Whitehall Pottery everywhere else. And Heidi Jacobs artist, I think is another way that you can find me. I don't know. I've been around a while, guys.
In strictly the creative sense. Rasmus, and where can people find you?
You can find me at Rasmus Loen on any of the mostly social places. And if you are able to use Google Translate, you can find also me at loensmed.no.
And as I say every time, so it's RASMUS and Loen is LOEN, just in case you didn't catch it from his accent. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you.
What accent?
What accent? Well, you don't have an accent in your country. No, I know.
No.
Well, everyone, thank you very much for listening, and we'll hopefully see you again soon, as it were. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.